Next is obviously Ryan Tannehill. That's the most boring option there possibly is, but everybody's going to toss it out there. He's a veteran. He's worked with Arthur Smith. He's a backup, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't solve anything for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I'm just going to sit here and say very, very calmly and very quickly, if the Pittsburgh Steelers solution to this is, oh, well, Ryan Tannehill will be a backup and then we'll go draft somebody super late, they are messing up big time because that is not the way to go about it. I think that you're going to sit there and, I mean, Russ goes down. You're now adding Ryan Tannehill in there, who's not a starting quarterback anymore. And in a year from now, you don't have any quarterbacks. Again, it solves no issues. Solves no issues. The NFL draft, that's the big one. I think if it's not Justin Fields, it's the NFL draft. I think that's the way to go. There are three names that I think are big in the NFL draft. And, you know, just to kind of jump off of this question, maybe not my favorite prospects, because I think my favorite prospects are the guys at the top of the draft. I think it's obviously Caleb Williams, even though I've heard mixed reviews. Who cares? Drake May is up there. Jaden Daniels is up there. I'm starting to grow on J.J. McCarthy. I think where the Steelers would look, I think if we're going to talk realistically where the Pittsburgh Steelers could look in the NFL draft, there are three names. Michael Penix is a big one. He's going to be a second-round pick, maybe a third-round pick, depending on how things shake out, depending on how far Bo Nix falls. I think that determines where Michael Penix goes. Because if Bo Nix falls and continues to fall, Penix is going after him, and he's going quite a ways after him. So I would view that and say, if Bo Nix falls close to the second round, Michael Penix might fall close to the third, and you can make a move at that point. Michael Penix is a name. I know the Steelers, are at least their West Coast scouts, at least the guys that are out there, love Michael Penix. There's a lot to love about Michael Penix. He's got a great arm. He's a leader. He's got a lot of swagger. I mean, the dude looks like he's capable of doing something and turning into something. He needs some time, but the Steelers like him. I don't know if they will. They very rarely draft West Coast guys, let alone West Coast quarterbacks. So that's really hard to come by. But he's a guy. And again, I agree. He tore his ACL a billion times, and he's 25 years old. I agree. But he's got a lot of skill. And if he's there in the middle of the draft, it makes a lot of sense. Number two is Spencer Rattler, which is the worst of the three. He is not even close to he might be my least favorite prospect in the draft. He might be my least favorite quarterback out there. Like you can go not sign anybody. You could go into the season with just Russell Wilson. I think I favor that over adding Spencer Rattler. But he balled out in Mobile. Mike Tomlin loves his Mobile quarterbacks, loves his Mobile performers. If you go to the Senior Bowl and you have a good day, you are immediately on the Pittsburgh Steelers radar. Mike Tomlin loved Spencer Rattler down in Mobile, Alabama. And, you know, I think that's an option. It's a terrible option, but it's an option. Then there's Florida State's Jordan Travis. I think Jordan Travis is a big name to watch. I think he's going to slip into the third, fourth round, depending on how things go, depending on how the offseason goes and how his rehab progresses and so on and so forth. But I think he's a sneaky name. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers could look at this kid and say, hey, look, there is zero pressure if we draft him in the fourth round or even with the second, third round pick and say, hey, this is our guy. We'll sit behind Russ for a year, maybe add Russ for another year, and then we go to a Jordan Travis. Jordan Travis is a sneaky name to watch. I don't know how much interest the Pittsburgh Steelers have in him. That is a name. There are other names that I've heard. You know, we're going to get to Joe Milton in a second. That's a big one. Joe Milton and the Pittsburgh Steelers have a lot of connections. His name has been brought up a ton every time I talk to people inside that building and who do a lot of work for the Pittsburgh Steelers, both league and team sources. Jordan Travis has not been linked to them. I've not heard his name once, but I think he makes a ton of sense. I don't think he's going to be linked to any team. I don't think when you're dealing with an injury and you're unable to show anything right now and you're coming off surgery and so on and so forth, any team's going to talk about you. I don't think anybody's sitting around going, that's the guy, the injured one. That's the guy we love. I look at it and say he's a sleeper and you won't hear any traction until the draft starts or right around the draft when he's healthy and he starts to perform a little bit and he's working with teams and guys are meeting with him. That's when you're going to start to say, okay, let's connect some dots. Maybe Jordan Travis is a move. But I think Jordan Travis is a name to watch. And I think he makes a ton of sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers, especially because he's not ready to play in the NFL, but he's got the upside. He's got the upside to learn behind Russell Wilson, and that's cool because that's what you're looking for right now. You're not looking for a starter. You're looking for Russell Wilson's backup and somebody who could develop into a starter. And I think Jordan Travis could be that answer. Then there's Joe Milton. Joe Milton and the Pittsburgh Steelers have a connection, man. I'm telling you, the Steelers love this guy. What is not to love about him, except for most of his game? But he's got an arm, man. He's got such an arm. The Steelers love that arm. I think that he's, depending on where he goes in the draft, if he's a 5th-round pick, the Steelers aren't going to draft him. They're not even going to think about it. If he's sitting there in the 6th round and the Steelers could get their hands on him, why not? Why would you not take a risk on that guy? Again, I don't think he's a starter, but I think that he's better than Chris Oldokun, who they took in the 7th round. I think he's better than, I don't know, Duck Hodges at some point. Shout out Duck Hodges. Hope he's doing well. I just think that the Steelers could view him as somebody who can progress over time, be a backup at some point. If you could get another young guy, if you could get a Justin Fields and a Joe Milton, you're feeling real good. It's crazy. I tweeted it out not long ago. You could look at this, and I mean, two months ago, a month ago, something like that, I said, what if the Steelers quarterback room ends up being Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, and Joe Milton? Your potential is crazy. And I think that's where the Steelers could somehow end up, which is wild to think from how far they've gone from Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, Mason Rudolph. I look at Joe Milton as a name, not a starter, not a future, really anything in the NFL. You're taking a huge risk on him, or not even a risk. It's just a low risk, somewhat unknown reward. We'll go unknown reward because you just don't know what you're going to get out of him. You don't view him as a starter in 2025. I mean, you just hope that he develops. Those would be my quarterbacks to watch in the NFL draft. I don't know. I'm skeptical that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to go big on a quarterback, but I do believe that they have to draft one now. I do believe that has to be on their list. I don't know if they would be if it was on their list. I think Joe Milton was on their list, but that was about it. I don't think they were going to reach for Michael Penix. I don't think they were going to go get a Jordan Travis or Michael Pratt or a Spencer Rattler. I just think they were going to let it rock and hope Milton's there in the 6th round or undrafted and they could sign him then. But I think that's how they viewed it. Now I'm sitting around saying they have to draft a quarterback. You can't ignore that position. But if we're going to be honest, then let's talk about, everybody wants to talk about Justin Fields. We'll get back to Justin Fields at some point so we can round this whole thing out. But let's talk about the draft picks that you have acquired and where the Pittsburgh Steelers stand right now. I mean,